Welcome back to Beyond the Uniform. I'm Justin Asiri, and my goal is to give military veterans the tools they need to be successful in their civilian career. Today, for episode number 160, is Daniel Rao of Veterati.
I would say first for me, I had not started a company before. So my biggest challenge was essentially starting a company. Going from idea to market is this insane learning curve. And that's what the business is going to be. You're constantly learning across from every different angle. It's one challenge after another always. And that's the beauty of it. At the same time, like you mentioned, 2 years in startup life is like 20 years of experience in a company. And it's true. It's an incredible crucible of learning and growth, but it's continually stretching your own professional limits.
Well, today is a resources episode where we're going to be talking about a resource that any veteran can use called Veterati. Then my guest today, Daniel, their co-founder, is going to talk about how 80% of job opportunities come from someone's personal network. And so augmenting this network and making it stronger is extremely important. And Veterati is a great way to do that. As always, at beyondtheuniform.io, we'll have the show notes where we have links to everything we discussed today, as well as our brand new website where you can find videos, more to come, publications, podcasts, career paths, tons of information to help you in your civilian career. So with that, let's dive in to my conversation with Daniel Rao of Veterati. Well, joining me today in New York is Daniel Rao from Veterati. Daniel, welcome to Beyond the Uniform.
Hey, thanks so much, Justin. It's a real pleasure to be here today.
And I wanted to give listeners just an abbreviated version of your background. Daniel is the founder and chief operations officer of Veterati, which is a company that provides digital mentorship on demand and is designed to empower Americans across the nation to mentor our veterans and connect them to real career opportunities. Daniel served as a Marine security guard and communications technician for 5 years in the United States Marine Corps. Prior to founding Veterati, he worked at Scottrade as a branch office account representative and as a personal security specialist at International Development Solutions. Daniel, so maybe to start off, how would you describe Veterati to someone who's listening who might be on active duty?
Yeah, that's a great question. In the most simple terms, I would just offer that, Veterati is a tool out there to connect with industry insiders that respect your military service and want to support your career journey beyond the military, leveraging their advice, coaching, and connections. At Veterati, for lack of a better term, we call it mentorship on demand, but it's really, we created this platform that allows millions of Americans that want to give back and do more than just say thank you for your service, a tangible way to connect with service members who are looking for the advice and guidance from the source of how, to find their dream careers or, the path to get there, whether it's if they want to pursue the higher education avenue, or someone's interested in pursuing a career as an entrepreneur or exploring some idea in an entrepreneurial venture. And so it's based around this whole concept that, 80% of opportunities come through personal networks. So leverage personal networks and the people that want to be there in your corner supporting you to help you find your success.
That's great. I mean, it on the civilian side, it seems like so many people want to help the military community and they don't really know how. And so it seems like you're putting training wheels around this and giving them a very concrete, well-defined way to give back. And then I love on the veteran side, I like that quote, 80% of ops come from personal networks, because most of a veteran's personal network is going to be other people in the military, which is not going to be as helpful in finding their career. So I love the thought that you're helping them expand that network with people who can give them some really quality advice and help in moving their career forward.
That's exactly right. I'm glad you point that out, because, having that network is really such an enabler of success. And what Veterati is, in essence, is an augmented network of people that are pre-bought into your success that you can simply step into and then leverage to succeed and win.
That's great. Is there any focus? I mean, if someone's listening and they're interested in entrepreneurship, or does it have to be tech or finance, or what's the flavor that you deal with?
Yeah, so we enabled it where we based around the concept that, when someone leaves the service, they're typically going the three paths: education, entrepreneurship, or direct into employment. So we created and designed our platform around those so that if you want to pursue higher education, you can reach out to mentors to have discussions about, well, given my background and where I want to go, what kind of education will I need to get there? And then, all the questions that come along with that, right? Like which degree, which school, is an MBA more valuable than a PhD, or how does my bachelor's in arts play into my long-term vision, or do I need a BA or science? Even down to having a very kind of safe space to ask dumb questions of somebody who understands. If you just, a lot of people just don't know sometimes, the details because they haven't been in higher education, and, maybe you don't know the difference between a Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Science and which is better, or how they're actually, the terminology is. It's similar to, being an entrepreneur. Maybe coming out of the military, you don't have experiences yet of being an entrepreneur. So there's a huge learning curve there for you to tackle through these conversations with experienced insiders that have already been entrepreneurs or serial entrepreneurs and have gone through, the trial by fire of launching their first ventures and the learning curve associated with it. Similar to talking with mentors who are, employees at companies that you dream of working at, whether it's Amazon or, USAA or Nike or, Oath, which not a lot of people know, which is the AOL and Yahoo merger, or whatever. You can learn more about those organizations direct from the source, direct from employees that work there. You can ask them questions about, well, hearing my background, how can I then chart my path to get the career or job that you have now? Because it looks pretty awesome to work at, Oath, for example, in the digital media space. I'd love to work for TechCrunch or Yahoo or AOL or, one of your many brands. How do I do that? And what's a account manager? Or, questions like this that just, get to the core, on the ground truth. And we saw this was a big need. There was, for service members transitioning, that there wasn't these feedback loops that helped, really just cut through a lot of the signal to noise kind of ratio, in the transition experience. So by leveraging experience, yeah.
Oh, that's one of the things I was going to ask about. Like, where did this come from? Because you've been doing this for, what, two plus years. How did this come to be?
Yeah, that's a good question. So January 2015, I was out in Afghanistan doing security contracting, and I was having a conversation with now my partner, Diana Rao, via Skype. She was running a branding agency out in Shanghai. And, I was one of the first service members that she'd ever met. And so we had talked about what it's like to go from being in the military to and onward in your professional identity. And we decided, our friends are asking us, how to go from the military onward. Maybe there's something we can do to help them. So we took a swing at seeing what we could do first to assist. We listened to 6 of our friends who were all active duty Marines at the time, part recon Marines and some were in MARSOC. We really just wanted to dig into what's the issues facing them in transition. I had a couple ideas and hypotheses from my own transition experience and that of other people I knew. But really our experiment was, how can we understand where someone's coming from and where they want to go, leverage the best practices in marketing industry so we can tell people's story well, and then also leverage the connections that are critical to people to succeed. So we call these guys the original six, and you can see on our website it's Greg Matos, Sonny Morgan, Lewis McIntyre, Darren Rohr, Jaime Lima, and Scott Dave. And through that process, we learned a lot, but it was amazing in revealing that all these guys felt like whatever it was we had done there with, for lack of a term, just listening to their story and the mentorship, advice, guidance, and connections we then provided was crucial. So we decided, to accomplish this, to be able to scale upward to offer that to all service members as they leave the military, we would definitely need some serious tech platform behind us. So we started marching forward on how we could build that.
And I want to come back to for those listening who are interested in entrepreneurship, I want to kind of come back because I think there's so much to talk about in your story of starting this. But let me veer off first and just focus on Veterati today. When you look at the experience you've had with helping veterans so far, do you see any trends in common misconceptions that they have about what their transition from the military to civilian career will be like?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes a lot of times, I would say there's a couple things people underestimate, right? The first thing is really that it's going to take some time, right? And people in their transition planning need to build that in, right? It's not just, having a plan, but it's also an internal growth process that, you're learning new things, you're experiencing new things. And that's, a part of that just naturally happens as you're out, going along your path. Let's see.
I mean, that stands out to me as well too. I think that sometimes people on active duty, I think part of it is most of us on active duty were told like, hey, you're going to be taken care of when you get out of the military. You're going to be hooked up, and then it's not. At least my experience, it's not that simple. It's not like there's just a job waiting for you. And there's also that part you talk about, the internal growth of like even figuring out what you want to do. And so sometimes I talk to people and it sounds like they've got like a 4 or 6 or maybe 8 week window before they really need to be making money. And it's like, that's a tall order. You're talking about a pretty big shift. I mean, if you want to go do the exact same thing you did in the military, something very similar, I'm sure you can do that. But if you're looking to do something different or something new, that takes some time, and oftentimes it takes a step back in terms of pay. And if you need to be making the exact same pay within 6 weeks of leaving the military, that's a tall order to fill.
Yeah, that's true. I would say another assumption really is in some cases people assume it's better outside the military, and that's not always the case, right? So by talking with, industry insiders who are out there doing what you assume might be what you want to be doing, you might find in those conversations that, I'm good. I don't need to go be a investment banker, or if that path to go from, being in infantry to finance to investment banking and onward is going to be this other experience. Maybe I want to, stay in and get my retirement and do something else. It's really up to those people. But
I mean, that makes a ton of sense too. I wonder sometimes what percentage of people get out should have, not should, I hate the word should, but what percentage of people who get out would have been happier had they stayed in the military. And I'm sure it's true of the opposite. There's probably people who stay in the military and would have been happier had they gotten out. But I think you're right. Oftentimes, either way, you kind of think the grass is greener on the other side. And it's not any civilian career path is not without its faults and without its problems. Just like in the military, there's always going to be problems with whatever that career is like. There's just nothing's perfect.
Yeah, that's so true.
Do you see any common? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's also there's it's kind of like the analogy of someone with great athleticism. He could maybe or he or she could maybe if they had a specific sport like soccer, football, boxing, whatever, kickboxing, maybe they're really awesome at that. But that doesn't necessarily mean they can just leave that sport and go directly into another and be top of their game, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's nuanced, but leaving the military, I think a lot of people have found their groove and they've found great success in the military, and those wins and that culture and that environment that they've thrived, sometimes they assume they'll just thrive outside of that or in a new space, which they will, but they have to learn the new game, and then how to thrive in that new game. And I think that's a part of what takes the most time, right? Absorbing the new kind of environment.
I love it, man. I think that's an exceptional analogy, that sports analogy. And it's like, yeah, if someone's a world-class kickboxer, they can probably switch over and be, they'd probably be pretty good at a pickup game of basketball. But if they're looking to compete at a collegiate or professional level, that's a pretty big shift. And it's like most people, I think, who are listening to this, or most of the people that you interact with at Veterati, they want to compete at a great level in their professional career. They're not looking for a mediocre career. They're looking to really excel. And that means that even though they were a great athlete in the military, being an athlete in some other field is going to be a different process, different rules, different terminology, different skill sets, different muscles used. And it doesn't make that physical training they went through as a kickboxer irrelevant. But it means that they still have a lot of growing and a lot of learning to do before they can compete at that level in something else.
Yep, that's exactly it. And, they have the raw talent, the raw potential. So we try and connect them with the best coaches and mentors to really, sharpen what they have so that they can succeed whatever direction they're looking to go. And today with Veterati, really a transitioning service member or military spouse is driving their own career and direction they're headed. We just try and pour the jet fuel on the fire with, the right coaches to get them to that level of excellence they're looking for.
How does that work with the coaches? I'm such a big fan of mentorship and advisors, and I love that quote that is success leaves clues. And it's like, if you want to get somewhere faster, don't reinvent the wheel. Like, figure out people who have gone there and learn from them, and they can save you hundreds or thousands of hours. So how does that work? How often are veterans meeting with their mentor through Veterati?
Yeah, great question. We found that a lot of it really kind of depends on personalities, honestly. Some of our mentees, I've seen people book up to 25 mentors, or some like to keep a small cohort of, up to like 4. And some people even just have one they try and narrow down and commit to. And then naturally the cadence for those would change. Really, we recommend to all of our users that, build yourself a cabinet of advisors that, can cover, your success and your career journey from several different perspectives and lenses, so that, you're surrounded on all sides by advisors. So whether that cadence is every 2 weeks you're talking to your mentor, or you're talking to a different mentor every week, we really just leave it up to that mentee and the mentors to set their own pace and, drive at their own speed.
That's incredible. I mean, I think of with Storybox, I have a whole host of advisors. I know when I have a question around marketing or growth, I have someone I can go to. When I have a question around finance, there's someone I could go to. Or when I have a question about raising money, there's someone I can go to. And having those allies in my corner and people with really specific expertise is great. And so I love how you explain that as this cabinet of advisors and the potential to really fill this out and have a variety of people. I think it's great. My hat's off to whoever that is that's got the 25. That person is going after it. That's that's awesome.
Right? Yeah, no, I do the same thing. And so it's so valuable, right? Just to have this support network of experts who are right there for you, whether it's if you got, you know, in launching Veterati, if you need an expert in legal and marketing and operations or strategy or wherever. And so we recommend that onward to our users.
That's awesome. What about if someone is listening and they want to get involved with Veterati? Could you take us through what that looks like? So from going to your website to forward, what does that process look like?
Sure. So there's a couple. Okay, so if you are a transitioning service member, military spouse, or we also, through one of our partnerships, support the military family, specifically if you are a young adult and your family has, you have a service member who has died in active service, we support you as well. Just go to veterati.com, sign up, click the red button, Access Mentors. It's below the video. You'll sign in using your LinkedIn credentials. It'll pre-populate your profile for convenience. And then you basically click through 6 slides of basic info, and then we'll confirm your phone number via an SMS. Once you go through all that, it usually takes under 2 minutes for a person. Then you immediately can see thousands of mentors that are available for you to click on demand with a one-click booking. The cool thing about Veterati is mentors pre-offer their availability, so you can just look at the calendar view and see at this date and time, this person says, hey, reach out to me. I've just set it aside to be available for you. When you do hit that one-click book, that red button, it'll send them an SMS to their phone, and they can then approve or deny that message, depending on if maybe something popped up on their calendar that, our system just isn't aware of. Now, if you're a mentor and would like to sign up as a mentor, it's the same process, basically. So simply go to veterati.com and then scroll down on the homepage a little bit. You'll see a button that says Become a Mentor. And you simply sign up using your LinkedIn credentials. It'll pre-populate your profile. You go through several screens of basic info and then confirm your phone number via SMS.
I love how
very similar.
Yeah, I love how streamlined that is. I mean, just something small like pre-populating the information from LinkedIn. That's so great rather than having to fill in all this information all over again. And I love the thought of having those times selected. So it's not the marathon of trading back and forth emails. It's just, it sounds like it's very streamlined to get someone in front of an advisor or mentor as quickly as possible.
That's it. And that's what we wanted to design. We wanted a process where really all the barriers were removed for somebody to get talking with a mentor or advisor as fast as possible. Our idea was, LinkedIn is awesome. And if we could just take or highlight and find all of those golden needles in the haystack and put them all together into one haystack of people that wanted to support your transition, then that would accelerate somebody to a conversation versus, having to reach out and you don't know if that person's going to be open to a conversation, or they might be, or they might not return your email, or this kind of scenario. But there's 2 other ways an entity could get involved with Veterati. If you're a nonprofit, we sponsor nonprofits with Veterati. And second, if you're a company that's looking to hire veterans, we work directly with companies, either to leverage Veterati as an engagement tool or internal for talent development. So once a veteran enters your organization, it leverages Veterati technology to connect with other veterans or employees in the business to accelerate your success in that business.
That's great. So it's not just the mentorship, but it's connecting them with potential job opportunities and potentially even helping train them once they're in that job.
Yep. Essentially, it's removing barriers within the organization so that, say you step into a new organization and from day one you can reach out to other employees across the business that have pre-indicated that they're available to help you succeed there, instead of the risk of being the new guy who just doesn't know who they can reach out to, or if it's a leap of the chain of command, or what the exact cultural norms are yet. So it's helping support from that aspect.
That's awesome. And then, maybe switching gears just a little bit to talk about the road to getting here. What has been one of the biggest challenges in starting your own company? I mean, I'm thinking, 2+ years in startup years is what? That's like 20 years. It's like a 10-to-1 ratio. So, anything you'd like to share? Just, I think it's always helpful for people who are thinking of starting their own companies to hear some of the roadblocks that occur on the way.
Yeah. I mean, you understand from starting your own organizations, a lot of this. I would say first for me, I had not started a company before. So my biggest challenge was essentially starting a company. Going from idea to market is this insane learning curve. And that's what the business is going to be. You're constantly learning from every different angle. It's one challenge after another always. And that's the beauty of it. At the same time, like you mentioned, 2 years in startup life, it's like 20 years of experience in a company. And it's true. It's an incredible crucible of learning and growth, but it's continually stretching your own professional limits, beyond. And it's really sobering because it brings you back to what are your limits and then where you need to grow beyond those to actually help your company succeed. And the second kind of wild card in the whole process, so one, learning curve, right? So you, however you absorb knowledge, learn, and grow, you have to figure that out. The second one is how you work and deal with people is an entire wild frontier, right? Because you may feel like you were good with people in certain environments in the past, but with a startup, you deal with everybody in the entire spectrum of scenarios and situations, from your internal team, your external facing presence, clients, and it's really just it's another learning curve. So you get exposed to so many varieties of scenarios and different aspects of personality and people types and things to work with. So those I would say are two of the biggest challenges you'll face.
I love both of those. I love the thought. I agree with you on that first with the learning curve. And one of the things I've both loved and hated about this is it really does push you to be your absolute best, and you just have so much to learn and so much to grow. It seems like entrepreneurship is this concentrated way to be the best at whatever it is you're doing. And then I had never thought of that second point around this range of people you deal with. And I'm thinking like if I had been in a marketing role or customer support role or product role, customer support, I'm dealing with customers, that's one thing. Product, manager, I'm dealing with engineers, that's another thing. If I'm dealing with sales, that's potential customers, that's another thing. But in entrepreneurship, you're dealing with all of those. And so it really stresses every facet of leadership and every facet of communication. And I've never thought about that before. I think that's like really important that you point that out, that you're going to have to be switching contexts and switching communication styles and switching leadership styles in every, a dozen different ways rather than just one, which is what more roles would use.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and also just the reality that end of the day, you have to own the success of your venture. Like you cannot point a finger anywhere else in the whole process other than, it's you and your team driving the business, driving the success of the, company. And end of the day, you have to reconcile that. It's easy when you're in another company to say, oh, it's the CEO's leadership that sucks, and that's why nothing's happening. But if it's your own startup and venture, that's you. You're driving the whole ship.
That's great. I'm wondering, again, for someone who's thinking of starting their own company, how did you approach that juncture at the start, whether you were going to be a for-profit or a non-for-profit business?
Yeah, so that was a lot of just, we initially, Diane and I, my partner and co-founder, she's currently CEO of Veterati, we were up in the air. We could have gone either way at first. So when we were talking about this and we were exploring Veterati in May of 2015, we went to this nonprofit conference of all veteran serving organizations in DC. And, we learned from that the VSO space has, tens of thousands of organizations, and they're all competing for foundation dollars. And, it's this very fragmented space. And these were just our observations at the time. And we decided that, there's probably a way we can maintain our own autonomy to drive the business any way we see would help us accomplish the mission, and at the same time figure out a unique monetization model as a for-profit that would subsidize the entire Veterati platform to be free for veterans, military spouses, and then also the mentors who were volunteering. And so it was kind of this trade-off of ideas. So we just took a stand, decided to go the impact first kind of focused for profit, and maintain ownership of it and make our own decisions in the best interest of our users.
That's awesome. And I love, I love that thought, because I imagine it is crowded on the nonprofit side, and I admire the companies that are doing good in the world, but they're still for profit. I think it brings a certain level of scrutiny and discipline and competitiveness that benefits everyone. And I'm assuming that this is free for veterans. How do you guys make money then, kind of on the recruiting side and that employee or employer training side of things?
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. So, the way we basically subsidize the whole thing is we leverage a white label version of Veterati for companies to use. If you picture external of their organization to engage with veterans that want to approach your brand, so then you can talk with have a human-to-human interaction, right? You can talk with employees on the inside, and that company will sponsor all of those companies. And in those instances, we do a custom reskin of the platform, and then some other feature ads if that organization wants. And then the second way we work with companies is for internal talent. Essentially, we do another custom instance, but this time it's sandboxed off to be internal focused. And we reskin the whole process, leverage the basic bare bones of Veterati, so that when a new hire enters that organization, then they can identify people throughout the organization that want to support them thriving at that company.
That's awesome. And it's interesting because you have started this organization with your partner Diane. What is it like working with a partner in a business setting? And then how did you guys decide between CEO and COO?
Yeah. So this was, it's a first time working with anybody I've been in a relationship with, right? But we initially decided on CEO versus COO because she had more experience launching companies. So Diana's a serial entrepreneur. And so she was more familiar with the process, but also leveraging our strengths. So my strength is more in operations, and I'm very detail focused and, crossing all the T's, dotting all the I's, contract compliance, regulatory, like all these things are stuff that, I'm just better, like more inclined to by nature. And Diana is more inclined to more of an external facing, storytelling, the prettier, better front facing version of the company. So it's really been powerful to have this combo punch where all of my strengths, reinforce all of her weaknesses and vice versa. Like all of my weaknesses, or things I'm less good at, she's awesome at, and they're superpowers of. So it's really been the best of both worlds to have a combo punch on those different fronts.
That's awesome. Do you have any advice for someone who may be thinking of starting an organization with a spouse or partner or someone they're in a relationship with?
Yeah, it's possible. There's lots of people in relationships that have gone on and had very successful companies. It really takes a lot of trust between you two. Second, it creates an environment where it's a crucible where you accelerate your relationship issues and have to resolve them and communicate with each other. And that's a huge benefit. I think Diana and I have found in our relationship that I think matured us a lot faster as a couple than maybe just casual dating would have if we had casually dated instead of decided to launch a company together.
And for those thinking of being either a COO at a startup or just an entrepreneur in general, I know listeners have given me feedback. They really like to learn the nitty-gritty details of what a day looks like. And so if you could just kind of take us through any day, it could be a representative day or yesterday or last week, whatever it is, just kind of take us through the day to day. Like, what time do you usually start? What sort of things do you usually do? And giving us that picture of the daily activity, but also what the lifestyle is like.
Sure. Lifestyle looks like every day is completely different. You never know what's going to pop up, whether it's a fire you're going to fight or, kind of a success that's on the horizon and that comes through. Today, it's variety, really. So today, I woke up at 8, grabbed a coffee, then went and worked out. And what's important for me is to really get in a workout. And for peak performance, I have to maintain physical health, emotional health, and almost like a spiritual health. So I have to feel like I'm growing, feel like I'm working out. So I try and knock those out in the morning and kind of prime my whole day. After my workout, I started working on some client deliverables and a lot of project management. And this is more because I'm focused as COO. But there's 3 different phases that those could fall in. And I was basically working in all 3 of those phases. A discovery phase, so I have a client who's interested in how can Veterati support what they're doing and everything with their organization that wants to support veterans. Or second, we're in a contracting phase with another company that wants to do business with Veterati, so working on contracts and scoping projects and sending them over an invoice and these kind of things. Or third, some level of execution phase. So one of our partners we're working with we're currently building an internal version of Veterati for them. And so I'm working with our designers to redesign what that looks like and then wireframe that out with them. And then managing our people. So there's the day-to-day, our people need to get paid, they're and kept in the loop about what's going on with the business and company. Fifth, working a bit with marketing and external messaging on a couple things. And sixth is, responding to emails and collaborating with our nonprofit partners. So it's 24/7 on, but I like to, you basically have to build in stops into what you're doing, because otherwise it can really just take over your whole life. And if, you're OCD enough where that's what you want, you can do that too. But I think burnout's a real thing for entrepreneurs. Like if people don't build in things that recharge them, it's easy for somebody to, just be always on and just fry. So it's critical to find like what recharges you and build that into your day to day.
I love that. I mean, I think I love the description of your day, but I also just appreciate what you're saying about burnout too. And I have experienced that in my own entrepreneurial journey. I know many people have, and I think it becomes short-sighted to work 24/7, and there has to be some way to rejuvenate. And I love the different buckets you have of that, physically and spiritually, and just all the different areas that you need to be feeding to treat this as a marathon rather than just grinding gears and treating it like a sprint that's just burns yourself out.
Yep.
I always like to keep the last question open-ended, and I wanted to give you a little bit more room for this, which is just, we've talked a lot about Veterati, we've talked a lot about your entrepreneurial journey. What have we not covered that you want to share with listeners?
Yeah. So when I think about that question, Diana, myself, and our third co-founder, T. Tang, also another Marine, started Veterati for the sole purpose of supporting transitioning service members to really succeed as they leave the service and go onward, right? So I would say, my top tips for being successful with Veterati, don't forget that, just start with an understanding that's okay to not know, what's going on. Like when you are leaving the military and going onward, you're taking on a completely foreign environment. There's going to be a huge learning curve, but given that understanding of it's okay not to know, all the answers, it's imperative to you to seek the answers. But with those two combined, to respectfully seek help, there's a lot of people that want to help you. So understand that people want to help you and be open to that, and that you don't have to do it all alone. It's not going to happen in one day. It's going to be a journey. And same as when you began your career in the military, you're going to learn a ton about yourself, about what you're seeking, the new rules of the game outside of the military, and your family, your brothers and sisters from the military, Veterati and other resources, organizations are going to be there to help you and use those, so leverage those. So, first tip is really just, it's okay not to know and seek help, because help's out there, right? And, lots of help's out there. Second is start exploring early. It takes time to fully gather all the information you really want to make an informed decision about leaving or staying in the military. Leverage Veterati, connect with people, talk with people, go right to the source of whatever you're trying to do, and understand what it's like for them, what they're doing, and then how you chart your path to get there. And take that into consideration. Talk to people in companies and in industries you may be interested in, and really learn about the good, the bad, the ugly of the reality in those jobs. And then third, just take action on the advice and guidance you're given. There's incredible wisdom and knowledge being shared every day on Veterati between mentees and mentors. But not just on Veterati. You can find mentors uh, everywhere you look if you want. But end of the day, don't just go through the motions. You have to do something with the new understanding of the situation. And all of this really just works to the extent that you're going to dig in and do the work it takes to move forward. So I would say in parting shots from Veterati, we wish you continued success in all of your ventures, and reach out. We're always here to support you every step of the way, not just when you transition from the military to private industry, but as you continue through the multiple transitions you'll experience beyond the military in your career journey. Leverage Veterati and conversations on demand from industry insiders. We're here for you.
This is great. Well, Daniel, I appreciate your sharing your story with the Beyond the Uniform community, but I also appreciate the work that you and Diane are doing with Veterati to help support the veteran community. And for listeners, I'll put show notes with links to Veterati, and you can find that very easily online as well, Googling or just veterati.com. Thank you so much, Daniel.
Thanks, Justin. It's been a real pleasure to talk with you today.
Surface.
Well, I hope you enjoyed my conversation about Veterati. A couple of things that stood out to me. First of all, I love how Daniel talked about how people assume it's better outside of the military, and that's not always the case. I really liked his sports analogy, where if you're great at kickboxing, you can't just go directly into baseball right away. And just realizing that even if you're really good at one particular thing, it may take you time to transition to become an expert or to become senior or a manager in something completely different. I liked his idea for this cabinet of advisors. Just cover your career success in a variety of areas through very smart people who can help you. And I love how he talked about entrepreneurship being this learning curve that really pushes you to your limits. I'd love to hear what stood out to you in the comments section of the show notes on our brand new website. Check out our new threads at beyondtheuniform.io. Thanks, and I'll be back with more episodes next week to help military veterans in their civilian career.